Hello YouTubers, welcome back to another video of me, Adam Well Informed. My rear-wheel drive Tesla Model 3 has finally been given the all clear. In just a few days, she'll be delivered back to me after being hit by a third party. Not once, but twice. For the past month, I've had the delight of driving this Polestar 2 as my hire car. It's been a real insight and I haven't regretted the experience at all. Just annoying my Model 3 had to get hit for it to actually happen. I covered my first impressions of the car a few videos ago, and this video is a sequel to that video. Naturally, after a period of time, you do discover more than before, and subsequently, your opinion can differ. For example, one of the biggest criticisms that I had in the initial video, I sort of found a solution to that thanks to some Polestar 2 owners. They showed me the way, and after some investigation work, I actually got to the bottom of it. So I will openly share where I initially went wrong with the Polestar 2 and what my final thoughts were on this Volvo cousin. If you have viewed this video purely off the title, I want to clear something up already. I absolutely detest the term Tesla killer. It is wildly misleading, perhaps more wild than Boris Johnson's mop of hair. In fact, I'm not sure that's even possible. I don't know which one makes me more uneasy, but it is precisely why I've chosen to use the term itself.
Say, hold up. Wait a minute, something ain't right.
Some of you may then call me hypocritical for using it, and I get why you'd quickly jump to that thought, but before you do jump to the easiest and fastest conclusion possible, trust me, stick to the end. You can make whatever judgment you like, but my use of the phrase will make total sense if you watch the entire video, and then you can then comment what you like, well, subject to YouTube guidelines, and hopefully it is positive or at least constructive at least. So before we get started, if you haven't seen my content before, I do a video pretty much every week on my Tesla Model 3. I talk about all things Tesla and electric cars in general. If you like that kind of content, drop us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, plus you'll be the first to know when the secret app that I'm helping to build called EconCalc will be released to the general public, which is in the not too long distant future. Funny enough, a viewer expressed interest in my previous video. Little did they know that they would then bag themselves the opportunity to beta test the app a few days later. If you want to know a little bit more about the app, take a look at the video on the screen now. You can also follow EconCalc's dedicated social media channels located in the video description below, where we'll be posting about the app's journey and the vision ahead. So let's go through my final thoughts on the Polestar 2. So previously I stated word for word, the more I drive it, the more it grows on me. It has strong EV performance, a decent circa 300 mile WLTP range, and visually it stands out as aggressive yet smart looking, ignoring the gold seat belts. You may find I was more critical of its interior setup, and that's primarily because I am used to the Model 3's simplistic setup, as roughly 90% of all controls are found on the screen, with the remaining 2% on the stalk or wheel. One thing remains the same in that statement, and that's that I still hate them gold seat belts. And I know hate is a very strong word to use actually. Thankfully, the seatbelts are part of their performance package only. Therefore, in most cases, the default seatbelts will be more fitting to the colour scheme of the interior. I just don't understand why they've decided to introduce this gold colour to the colour scheme, full stop. I'm no fashionista. I still wear socks with holes in, and I bet most of you do too, secretly. But it's such a colour clash. On the Polestar 2 configurator, this car has the highest spec interior trim, and the interior setup has black seatbelts by default. It definitely makes that a visual appeal 10 times better. Do you agree? I've seen a handful of Polestar 2s on the road with the Folder and Midnight exterior colour, and I think that's such a good choice of colour, by the way. They've really nailed the tone of colours in my eyes. But the interiors look so much better with the black conventional seatbelts. It may be a small thing, but having to wear a gold like sash across me every time I get in a car, it just spoiled the experience for me. So something to consider if you are interested in the Polestar 2, is it worth going for that performance package just on the seatbelts alone? It's enough to deter me from getting that performance package if I had the option to. Moving on to the performance, what I love primarily about EVs is the clean sweep of acceleration. Having driven it for a longer period, it leaves me giddy and excited when I get the opportunity to safely launch the acceleration. I want to reiterate that my rear-wheel drive Model 3 does feel like it responds much quicker initially than this dual motor Polestar 2. However, that benefit is fractional, as once it starts moving, the traction is there, the power is placed on all four wheels. That then makes up for that deficit. The official 0 to 60 time is 4.5 seconds, and it feels quick indeed. especially considering that the car is heavy. Its curb weight is 2,113 kilograms, and my rear-wheel drive Model 3 is about 1,611 kilograms. This may explain why the initial response is different, but you have to consider this Polestar 2 is carrying around 35% extra batteries and an extra motor, but I think it's mightily impressive, all things considered. I believe the BMW 3 Series 330d X-Drive M Sport Pro Edition is about 1,470 kilograms, and it can still only muster 0 to 60 time of 5 seconds, so it definitely has power if you want it. In regards to the range, I'll be completely honest, I didn't do a solid test to actually evaluate it. I have the trip meter saved and I did a few motorway runs, but primarily it's just been general day-to-day errands ever since. It's not going to be completely fair for me to actually comment on the range itself and performance in the middle of the coldest months of the year. In reality, it dealt with all the journeys that are through it, and I charged it at some free 7 kilowatt hour pod point stations whenever I could, but primarily I charged it at home, and in reality I think 95% of all EVs would have coped with my range requirements over the past month, so this will be no different in that respect. The handling of the car was really good, and I recall that I said that the braking regen was strong enough to be practical, and yeah, that statement absolutely is correct. I used it probably 90 to 95% of the time. Just like my Model 3, I would recommend everyone to try it as soon as you can. It's very easy to get used to, and it becomes very natural to have in a car. It brings the car to a stop at a significant pace, but you can actually taper that stopping distance with the acceleration pedal. Once you've done it a couple of times, you just don't want to go back. Over the past month, I did find a new persistent issue. At first, I thought it was something that I'd selected myself, like a setting, or my wife was actually playing a trick on me. Apparently, it's been a persistent issue for quite some time, well, according to this forum post. Sometimes when I finish reversing, the mirror dips on the driver's side and then refuses to actually go back to my initial nominated position automatically. Then I have to actually manually amend the mirror to correct it. Apparently, you can turn this setting off and manually select when you want the mirrors to dip, which seems like a practical workaround for now. Still, I would jump in the car and think my wife was playing some sort of sick trick on me, dipping the mirrors on purpose. Turns out it's actually a persistent bug. The car does have OTA software capability, therefore I can only hope for the sake of current owners that this is fixed shortly. I think it's reasonable and practical for an OTA update to fix this, and especially if it is indeed software related. Anyone remember the wiper issue that I had during the first impression video? I was left with this hideous amount of water on the driver's side if it rained, but the passenger side was completely clear, and initially I'd come to the conclusion that the wiper setup was set up for a left-hand drive vehicle. Thanks to a couple of comments from Polestar 2 owners, this turned out to be very much a car-specific issue. Despite being used multiple times, the wiper on the far right hand side appears to be bent upwards. I'm not entirely sure why it was there in the first place and how it even got bent in the first place. However, I've since corrected it and it's been working fine ever since. So I just want to eradicate this as a potential issue. It was very much a car-specific issue and it's not a widespread right-hand drive issue as I initially thought it was. Finally, I just want to touch on the interior again before adding my conclusion on the Polestar 2 and finally evaluating its status alongside the Model 3. I said it before and I'll say it again, there are some features that I do not like, and it's not because it's categorically bad, it's just not the setup I would personally choose myself. The Polestar 2 feels very boxed in, and in some reviews I noticed them referring to it as a more cockpit-like style. And after hearing that term, I can't think of any other way of explaining it. A massive part of that cockpit-like style is the center console, or lack of center console should I say. I still think more can be done here for an upcoming Polestar model, but it's designed around the transmission setup this time around, and if they can eradicate that, then they can eradicate the hump in the back here too, to create a bit more foot space for the rear seat users and get some more storage in here and actually have some practical cup holders, as these just aren't good enough in my eyes. The Google interface on the Polestar 2 has grown on me a little more since. It feels like the software is relatively new and not completely optimized just yet. Some settings are still hidden in menus and a bit out of reach, but on the contrary to that, I hear the version 11 update for the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y is suffering the same issue at the moment, but that's the beauty of OTA software updates. This can be adjusted overnight via the over-the-air update. The App Store for the Polestar 2 could also definitely be a USP in the years to come, but that's only on the basis that devs actually get behind it and produce the apps that people will actively crave. We've now reached the point where I will share my final overall opinion of the Polestar 2. I own a Model 3, so my perspective is somewhat conflicted and clouded, and I will explain that a little bit more in the Tesla Killer section. But in a world without Tesla existing, I could safely own a Polestar 2 and enjoy it. I just wouldn't want to take that performance package and have them hideous gold seatbelts. The interior isn't perfect to my liking, but the Google software seems to be the second best available on the market, and I think that deserves to carry some weight because messing that up can really ruin the car's experience. From a purchasing perspective, the Polestar 2 is sold in a similar fashion to how ICE or legacy automakers would sell a car, to some degree. By that I mean there is a barely spec'd entry model, and you can then add a dual motor setup or a longer range battery, and then you have the choice of adding 3 optional packs, and this determines some of the hardware and software features in your car. The entry pack includes cruise control, a 360-degree camera, and additional safety features such as blind spot awareness gear and emergency stop assist. This entry pack is £3,000. The next pack incorporates a heat pump, panoramic roof, wireless charging, etc. None of these options come as standard, and you can't cherry pick certain features. It's all for a single price of one pack or nothing at all. So picking a pack or two will be something you need to factor in when you're picking out your own Polestar 2, especially if you want to have a more higher spec Polestar 2 and a more enjoyable experience overall. So to summarise, I've said this Polestar 2 is not a Tesla killer, and it really isn't. Your next train of thought is, well, why is that? Is it because the car sucks, or is the Model 3 just a superior car? However, the truth is that they just aren't competitors. This is because both the Polestar 2 and Tesla Model 3 have been designed to be purchased and most likely to be an ICE owner's first electric car. They aren't competing directly against each other. That is just absolute cap. When a consumer purchases a good BEV, they won't see the advantages of ICE anymore. Therefore, I don't think the Polestar 2 is aiming to be better than the Model 3, just like the Model 3 hasn't been designed to be better than the Polestar 2 when they first designed the cars. It's been designed to be better than their current ICE car. It needs to seduce ICE car owners in the areas where ICE fails to compete. I feel the Polestar 2 does a great job of balancing the benefits of an EV with some additions that make it feel not so much a great leap away from an ICE setup. To some users, the Model 3 may be too much of a change in one go, and I will beg to differ that myself, but the Polestar 2 has that familiarity to it, such as the gear shifter, the inclusion of more interior buttons in a Model 3, and the car key itself. That's not to say the Model 3 is a bad choice to convert from a nice car. I own one and I'd completely disagree with that statement, but if you're from the UK, you may have seen that the Model 3 was the second best selling car of 2021 in the UK. That's not second best selling electric car, the second best selling car in 2021 in the UK. A vast majority of these new owners will be first time electric vehicle owners. These haven't switched from another BEV like the Polestar 2, so whilst an ICE owner may have the choice between switching to a Polestar 2 or Model 3, the term Tesla killer is a false pretense because in reality, to me, both vehicles complement each other. On one hand, you'll find the Polestar 2 owners that love their car, and likewise you'll find people that love their Model 3. Everyone has different needs and requirements, and these vehicles do have contrasting styles in certain areas, like the interior setup, as you clearly heard, and the hatchback boot is a prime example. I would definitely miss that Star Wars-like themed boot myself. Therefore, to conclude, the Polestar 2 is not a Tesla killer. The real term is that it's actually an ICE killer. And alongside the Tesla Model 3, it boasts choice for consumers within the BEV segment, and for that, I'm sure we will see their market shares grow in expense of petrol and diesel sales, and not each other. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Do you agree with me that both of these are ICE killers? Am I relieved of using that term Tesla killer? I hope you can forgive me. If you have got this far in the video, do drop me the comment of ICE killer, especially if you agree with me. Anyway, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends and family. Thanks for tuning in to another video of me, Adam Well Informed. And guess what? I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.